How are you, my friend? I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming back to hang out with me. I'm always honored that a lady would listen to me. Who am I, to write to number one, write this book, The Soul of Sarah. Who am I? Um, and to start a podcast to speak to women. But I do think that women need to know their value through a male perspective. And that's why I started this podcast. I have a podcast called the Dear Brother Podcast where I lift men up. We have a great morning show and things go very well there. But I need to lift the sisters up. And that's what I'm going to do. That's my plan, is to lift you up. Let's get into it today. I want to talk about the releasing of your mind. In this book, some of you have watched some of my other videos. I wrote this book called The Soul of Sarah after I eulogized my mother in 2012, and I'm re-releasing this book. It's available to you on Amazon right now. If you want that book, you can go to Amazon and get the book right now. But I want to get into it because what I did was I compared the reproductive system of a woman to a spiritual reproductive system. And what I found was that the same way a woman receives the seed in her body is the same way she receives it in her ear. She receives a word in her ear, right? And that seed goes in her body. It goes into an egg. And then the magic happens, let me not call it magic. Let me talk about what a woman does to produce, right? When I look at this book, we talk about Abraham, the father of many nations, right? But you need a mother of many nations. A father, as big as his idea is, he can't get it done, or as small as his idea is. One part you'll see in this book called The Soul of Sarah is I talk about the very size of a seed, of a male seed. A male seed is a thousandth of a milliliter, right? Very, very, very small, even smaller than I'm trying to make my fingers here. And in 9 months, a woman then gives this man eyes and ears and a body and organs and everything else, right? So just as it works in the physical body, so does it work in the mind. And spirituality, in your spiritual womb is your mind, right? Where the seed goes is your ear. And whatever goes in your ear produces in your mind. And it sits in your mind and it produces here. Eventually, you birth it out of your mouth. You'll make a declaration. And so you have to protect your spiritual reproductive system just like you would your natural reproductive system, because whatever you take in, you make bigger, right? And I think that that's why I'm here. I'm here to speak into your life from a spiritual standpoint, to see yourself as a different kind of woman. And when I talk about spiritual, I'm not talking about whether you're in a church or any of that. I'm talking about the spiritual part of your womanhood that allows you to see that just as great as your body is just as great as the mind, the will, and the emotions are. So in this book, I walk through that spiritual reproductive system. But the first thing I want to help you ladies with today, if I can help you, again, I walk through this very humbly because who am I? But there has to be a release of your mind, right? How you feel about you counts, right? Because how you feel about you determines what you allow other people to say to you or treat you. Other people can feel how they want to feel, but it is your feelings that decide how you operate, right? Not your feelings, but in your mind, you decide how you're going to operate. You decide how you're going to treat yourself. And so I believe that as a woman in this spiritual reproductive system, the first thing you have to know is that your mind is your slave and not your master, sis. You got to know that your mind is your slave and not your master. That's why as a strong woman, you have to give your mind an image to follow. Otherwise, your mind will always be searching around for something. And I believe that some of you sisters know what that is, to always be wondering at who you are, wondering at what you really desire. Eventually, you get exhausted inwardly, right? It's like running on a treadmill, just hours and hours. That's how the mind works when you can't settle on you, right? And a lot of women struggle to settle on themselves because there was no definition of who they were growing up. And so in some senses, a lot of you then become, you change according to what people desire from you. It's like the story, it's like the old game that we would play growing up, Pass the Secret or Pass the Story or whatever you called it in your town, right? In my town, I believe we called it Pass the Secret. And in Pass the Secret, it will be a circle of people in the room, and one person would start a secret or a rumor or whatever it is. And in that circle, they would pass it and whisper it down the lane. That's another name for it. And they would pass it. And this story would go from person to person to person to person to person. By the time that story got back to the originator, most times the originator would say, well, how did that get like that? That's not what I said. That's not what I put out. And it would be a big joke to say, how in the world did what I said get changed as it passed ear to ear? Well, so is it sometimes in a woman's life where once you pass through this relationship and that relationship, and even before relationships, you have expectations from your mother, you have expectations from your siblings, expectations from your father, right? Expectations to be well educated. There's so many expectations on you that eventually, in all you're trying to please everybody, you eventually lose you. And that's where the mental breakdown of a lot of women happen. It doesn't happen because you're crazy. It doesn't happen because you wanted it to be that way. It happens because of your compassion to try to be everything to everybody is why a lot of you sisters lose yourself, especially in male-female relationships. How many things have you become, sister? How many things have you become for this guy and that guy and what he needed? He needed a freak, so you became a freak. And he needed an intellectual, so you became an intellectual. And he needed somebody to just shut up and sit down. And he needed a cook. And he needed somebody to clean his house, right? You have to decide what? That my mind is my slave and not my master, right? I'm going to tell my mind what to do based on my desire. But sis, you got to slow down enough to know what are my desires, especially you sisters that are married and with children. A lot of times your desires get lost in your duty for your family. And then I'll do another podcast on this, but I want to talk about work-life balance for women. And I'll give you a teaser right here. There's no such thing as balance. I'll do that podcast soon. I promise you. That'll probably be my next one. Maybe. It should be, right? There's no such thing as balance. Either you sow in yourself or you don't. It's just the same way if you put a deposit in the bank, you can make a withdrawal. If you don't put a deposit in the bank, you can't make a withdrawal. If you're wondering what that paint is, I'm painting my daughter's room pink right now. So I got to finish this podcast so I can finish her day. Today is her birthday, so I got to go do it. But you got to decide where you are in your mind and what you will receive, not based on your toughness and I'm a strong woman and what I'm receiving. But no, it's not about the wall you put up, the fake wall of protection. The wall of protection is not in your words, sister, or it's not in your approach, especially to men. It's not in what you say and trying to, no, because really that is just a sign of fear when you're trying to put yourself that way. You got to protect yourself here. And before you protect yourself here in the womb, right? The womb is the mind. You got to protect yourself here, because here is where you receive the seed, right? Here's where you receive the seed. That's why some of you, and just like men, same thing. There's things people said to you in your teenage years. Now here you are 40, 35, 38, 27, still carrying things somebody put in your in your ear when you were young, and then your mind took it in and your mind produced off of that seed. You see what I'm saying? That's why you got to protect what you allow in here, because your mind is set to make it bigger. You got to decide, right? And there's some things you got to work out of your system, because there's some decisions you make that are driven by how you felt at 14, at 15, right? Even though you're grown, there's some broken parts of you, some things that people have chipped away at. Some of you are dealing with stuff from your prom, right? From your sweet 16, how you felt at 12, right? So then there has to be a healing portion, because in the womb of your mind is where your greatness comes from, right? It doesn't come from your feelings, sis. Feelings are too fickle to follow. Listen, my sister, you can have your feelings. I'm not saying don't have them, but they're too fickle to follow. They're up today. You feel like this tomorrow. You feel like that. So yes, is a woman made emotional? Yes. But that's not an excuse to sit in a pot of emotions that disallows you from using your mind to decide where and what and who you're going to be. Don't use your emotions as an excuse for bad decisions, sister. Listen to brother. I'm trying to help you here. Don't use your emotions as an excuse for constant bad decisions. Because after a while, no one will receive the excuse of your emotions, and then you will stop receiving your excuse for emotions. Because eventually you have to get tired of your pattern. And when you get tired of your pattern, then you put away excuses. Because it has to happen here first. You will go in the direction of your thinking, sister. That's how you go forward. You go forward in the direction of your thinking, right? And so this is the thing. This is my prayer for you, and I wrote this in the book. May your persona match the promises of God for you. May your persona match the purposes of God for you. That means sometimes you got to change your mind in order to receive what's going on. And understand this. Don't ever close your mind to divine opportunity, right? Because a finite thing came to break you. Divine takes you where you got to go. Small opportunity keeps you broken where you are. That's where some people need you too. You got to recognize the people in your life, sister, that need you broken because your brokenness has benefited them. You got to change your mind about certain people. And I'm going to say this to you, sis. There's some things that cannot happen in your life until you remove the parasites from around you. Because if God releases certain things to you right now, the parasites you've invited in your life will consume it before you'll feel the greatness of it. But that has to happen here. You have to look around and decide who I've been taking care of, who has not taken care of me at all. And not just men, they're friends, the weights in your life that you've wombed. How many things have you wombed? And you've been carrying it way more than 9 months. Some things you've been carrying for 20 years. Sis, some things won't grow and you can't make them grow no matter how much your desire it is. Excuse me. No matter what your desire is for it to grow, you can't make it grow. Just as much as you can't change a man. Most men have decided, most men are who they are by the time they're 17 years old. And they'll be that way for the rest of their life. You can't change him no matter how much you love him. And you got to know that. You can't womb certain people. Watch who you womb. Watch who you carry here. Some of you are carrying, you're carrying your mother and some of her issues. You're carrying a broken relationship. You're trying to raise your kids. You got to watch who you womb. Because what you womb, you eventually birth, and it can be negative or positive, right? All right, I'll do a part 2 of this right after this. I'll do a part 2 because I got to deal with the name change. Because I'll focus on how the persona, may your persona match your promise. But in order for your persona to match your promise, your name has to be changed. We'll get into that next time. Sisters, I appreciate you spending this time with me today. Again, who do I think I am, Sharon? I'm your brother. I'm the one who cares, who wants to give you something with nothing in exchange. That's what fathers and brothers do, right? We give you something where you don't have to give anything back. It's a picture of what it means to fall in love with the right man who loves you without forced exchange. So I hope I'm being a good example to you. I hope I'm sharing with you. Please go on Amazon, get the book, The Soul of Sarah. I'll walk through this spiritual reproductive system, show you how to heal, show you how to guard your mind, your heart, and your soul. Okay. And what I do believe, sisters, is that healed sisters heal sisters. Okay. Just as much as broken people break people, heal people heal people. And so I'm on a mission right now to speak into the lives of 3,935 incarcerated women in my state, Pennsylvania. Okay. And so you can help me do this. You can help me do this. The $20 donation will help me get 2 books. It's tax-free exemption. We're an exempt organization. And so you can donate $10, $20, whatever it is, that will help me get two of these souls of Sarah into the prisons. I will be able to sign them and put notes in them and then ship them to the prisons for these sisters. We want to lift them up. Healed sisters, healed sisters. When I do a live, I'll probably be doing a live soon, sisters, on maybe on Wednesday nights, I'm thinking, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, where you've rested, you put your children to bed, and we can just share and talk, and I can give good advice. But this will be part of our show, our Dear Sister, the advice time, where I can sit with you as a brother and give you advice about, how to move, how to think. I don't want you confused, and you shouldn't be confused. And anybody who's trying to confuse you or keep you confused is confused, all right? And so I want to be here for you, give you some advice. But as we close the show, my dear sisters, remember, you're worth it. You're worth it. You're worth the better thing every time. Lord, I thank you for my sisters. I thank you for their lives. I pray that they would know the value of themselves, but most of all today, as we taught, know the value of their womb, that mind, because out of the womb produces greatness or evil. And I pray that they would guard their ear, guard their heart from what will enter their lives, so they can decide who they're going to be, protect themselves from who they're not going to be, and ultimately become the woman of their own dreams. I thank you guys so much for this. Bless them, but make them a blessing to the sisters around them. Amen. All right, sisters. Love you. Talk to you soon.